Hi everyone, welcome back to our DDS interview sprint, part 5, the final one. And this time I'm super excited because both of us, Kenza and I, we're here to record together and talk to you together. Now, till now, we unearthed certain myths revolving around the 4 main elements of your DDS interview: behavioral, ethical scenarios, clinical, and profile-based. Now, just as we promised you, we will take a look at sample responses for each of these elements to help you gain more clarity on how you can possibly frame your actual answers.
Yes, so just like Flynn said, her and I are going to work on this one together, and we're going to go ahead and ask each other some questions and answer them for you to give you an example of how to tackle a profile-based, a behavioral, or an ethical scenarios question that comes up during your DDS interview. Now, we do want you to keep in mind that these are sample responses. And because they are sample responses, they cannot and should not simply be replicated. Rather, our goal is for you to get a preview on how to respond, how to frame your responses for each type of DDS question. Basically, just like our framework says, how to strike. So let's get started. All right, Flynn. So here's the first question that I'll be asking you. It's a busy day at your clinic. The waiting room is swarmed with patients waiting for their turn. While prepping to examine a patient, you hear a commotion from the waiting room and walk out to find out that a man visibly agitated has walked into the clinic and is creating a ruckus. You soon realize that he is drunk. He was also holding onto his jaw and was in pain. What would you do, Flynn?
Okay, wow, this is a tricky one. Let me see. Well, clearly my conflict here is whether I would cater to the said patient's needs despite his behavior by considering being just to him, or ask him to leave the premises to protect the lives of the other patients in the room and ensure that no harm is done to them. I think, rather I know, that I would choose to stress more on the first factor, attending the patient in an emergency, the particular patient that's mentioned in the question. However, for me, it's very important to ensure healthy communication with all the other patients in the waiting room as well about the situation, and request their 15 minutes time or so to tell them about the process and what I'm going to do to be fair to them as well as to the patient in the emergency, just to be just to everyone. And I'll ask the office personnel to check the patient's blood alcohol levels and use an alcohol breathalyzer and call his acquaintances, check his ID maybe. On arrival of the acquaintance or the friends or relatives, I'll secure informed consent and examine his complaint area and document the clinical findings for later. And I'll explain the consequences of alcohol consumption on immediate treatment. And also I will schedule to see him after 24 hours. When the patient returns, I would discuss his current dependency and suspected lifestyle and suggest any changes I can, and maybe recommend AA and other kind of counseling through which he can get help. Hi, Kenza. So tell us how do you manage conflict amongst your team members?
Yes, so I manage conflict amongst my team members by actually actively readjusting my attitude and striving to listen to the other member's point of view. So let me just give you a quick example that showcases exactly how I manage, conflicts between team members. It was during my undergrad, and I was taking a strategy class where I was part of a 5-person team-based consulting project. And basically, 2 members were slacking and missing deadlines, and then one person felt like she was doing all of the work. Now, a week before our client presentation, all broke loose. It was like a brewing fire that just exploded, and for a good 20 minutes, it felt like everyone was just yelling on top of each other, blaming the other one, and just complaining. So what did I do? Well, rather than add more fuel to the fire, I observed carefully, noticing that what was truly happening was that no one was listening to each other's concerns. And since I'm a problem solver at heart, I stepped in after it felt like everyone vented out their concerns and stated the common goal that I felt was felt by the entire team: lack of communication and lack of organization. The goal there was to really find a common ground between all of us so that we can move forward as a team and actually get the work done. So once we were able to hone in on the issue, I asked each team member to propose one solution that would work for them to solve the issue that we had agreed on. After each team member proposed the solution, I again found kind of the similarity between all of the propositions and then proposed a compromise that would be a win-win for the entire team. What was the compromise? So rather than meeting frequently, let's centralize our work into a Google Drive folder and create a project management task list where we clearly state who owns which task. Now, we agreed to implement the compromise and revisit it after our presentation. And at the end, our team's presentation was graded the highest, which we then agreed had a lot to do with our newly implemented, team processes. And from then on, the team's conflict was actually over, and we could finally just focus on the work and produce our results. Hi, Flynn. So I took a quick look at your profile, and I noticed that you took quite a few attempts to reach your final TOEFL score. Should this be a concern for us?
Well, honestly, I doubted myself a whole lot when I had to write the test for a second time. It was a concern for me, if not for anyone else. But soon, thankfully, I started to see the progress for what it actually is. And I'm honestly glad that you noticed that there were multiple attempts at play, because by the time I got my final results, which is after 4 attempts, I had well come out in flying colors. Now, this was a great learning curve for me, as I was under the impression that my basics of the language were quite strong, and I wasn't wrong. But in the face of that first low score, I learned to analyze how the test is actually designed and divert my technique in that direction. I never thought I'd prepare so much for a TOEFL test. That was a lesson by itself for me. After that experience, I've never taken any of my academic and clinical preparations for granted. I'm sure that I'm fully aware of any nuances and conscious of what's lying ahead of me. Moreover, it was an intense understanding of time management for me, as you might know about the test, right? By taking up various time management techniques to ace the test, I was able to inculcate that discipline in the other areas of my life, which really worked out for me. I'm really glad that happened. And coming directly to my skills tested in the TOEFL, I can confidently say that if anything, I'm a better communicator after training myself for the tests multiple times. So much that my spoken correspondence with my patients is actually seamless now. And honestly, the best thing that could come out of this learning process for me is that, if it makes me a better dentist and a better healthcare provider, then what can be better than that, right? I did a fair share of homework and traversed multiple resources, practiced with so many around me. And this even instilled an interest to keep reading and listening to more material, to continue and improve my language, English. And it was a win-win altogether for me.
And that's it. We are done with all of the elements of your prospective DDS interview. Trust us when we say this. Reflect on yourself, do your homework, and walk into your DDS interview without being tied down by any stereotypical shackles. And half your work is already done. And remember, like we always say here at Caapid Simplified, a good interview is a memorable conversation. We hope that this DDS interview sprint gives you a well-rounded learning experience to help you ace your next DDS interview. Let us know what other aspects of your DDS application you'd like to hear more about from us. And do share these videos with your fellow applicants too.
All right, we really hope you had fun, because we sure did. Kenza and I have been curating content for you all from 2 different parts of the world. She's in the US and I'm in India, and now we got to do this together and we've had fun, trust us. We hope this was fun for you all too and really informative and helps you. So see you soon for interview. Bye-bye.
Bonne chance.